Does anybody have any questions on that?
Okay, and we are recording, so we are in good shape. So Sue, yeah, whenever you are ready.
Okay, so call the meeting to order. And we'll do the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
Public
to the republic
stands.
for which it stands,
Which stands
one nation,
one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and
and
justice
justice
for all.
for all.
Okay, just get the agenda up here. Got too many windows open on my screen. There it is, the last one. Okay.
All right, we ready? Okay. Secretary's report for our 9:14 minutes approval. Does anybody have any questions?
I have one question or comment. It's on page 2. It's about the rocket. It was something about, no, I have to find it on here. Gail stated that a motion should be made to approve the use of this new technology, but I don't find anywhere on the minutes of the meeting that happened.
No, we determined it was not necessary. This is Gail. So we did not make that
No.
motion.
Yeah, I
So
think, I
then,
feel that
so
we,
then the minutes should be corrected, or some little sentence added to say that the group decided that such was not necessary.
I think that's in their minutes. I think we referred to, that the director had the, choice of making decisions that were effective for the library.
Okay, that was for buying it, yes, for buying any new. I thought this was more about the use of the specific technology of this one program.
I don't know,
On
I didn't
page
think
2,
so.
it says,
It was
Yeah.
the room reservation, and I thought it was more, about that.
so Emma, you're saying that, so Gail stated that a motion should be made to approve the use of this new technology. And you'd like to add something to the end of that sentence that said, but ultimately, it was decided it wasn't necessary, something to that effect?
I don't know, Dale is looking at it from a different viewpoint than I was, and that was about the purchasing of new software. I thought we were talking about how it was to be applied, how the room reservations would be activated, and that it was about that process,
Okay,
but I don't know.
because the discussion was a little bit of both.
Basically, I thought we had resolved it without, needing to have a vote.
I agree with you, Dale. I didn't. I think we decided that there wasn't anything that required a motion. That it was within Kevin's purview.
That's
Well,
how
then
I,
just scratch that entire sentence.
What's that, Marianne?
Then just scratch that entire sentence. Because with it in there, it sort of looks as if something is being left open.
Well, about halfway down that large block on page 2, says that Deb Witt and Peter Casserella agreed to move on. So I don't know if that kind of closes whatever that opens there.
Well, as I started that whole thing, I'll say that I'm satisfied with the way it is. I understand what Marianne is saying, but I think it's okay.
Okay, I wanted a clarification if needed, but if it's not needed, that's fine.
I think it's
So
okay.
as Deb and Peter said, let's move on.
Okay. So can I have a motion to accept the minutes from
So I
9?
have one small correction
Oh,
on page
okay.
2, just that Claire's name, I didn't notice previously, but it was misspelled. So it's Clare, no I. It's like that's the traditional spelling.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the 9:14?
I make a motion to approve the minutes as corrected.
Okay, does anybody want to second that?
I'll second it. This is Gail.
Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain because I wasn't at the meeting.
Althea abstaining because I wasn't at the meeting.
Who was the first person who abstained?
This is Sue Porter,
Okay, so Sue and Althea are going to abstain.
correct?
Yes.
All right, financial report. Kevin?
Okay, so you should have the financial report starting on page 7 of your packet. And it's not a whole lot to report really here. We are about 25% the way through the fiscal year. And if you look at the percent unspent column, you can see that we're between 70, 65 and 80% in most of the accounts there. We're in, we're in pretty good shape as far as the finances go. Nothing really large has come up unexpectedly.
Okay. All right, library director's report. Kevin?
Okay. So we're a few weeks into our newer extended hours, and there haven't really been any incidents so far with moving up to 5 days a week from 3 days a week. Foot traffic has been fairly slow on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We're putting the library open sign out by the street every day that we're open to just try and increase awareness of which days we're here and which days we aren't, because I know that causes some confusion for people, even though we're.
That's very good.
And the new staff are trained up on the desk and they're doing very well with patrons. So they're at the point now where they can handle most basic activities that they need to do, check stuff in, check stuff out, shelf maintenance, that sort of thing. They can process items. So, with each passing week, they're getting more and more capable. We have a good group so far. And it's nice to see them all getting up to speed and starting to coalesce as a full team.
Good.
The HVAC installation has been progressing over the past month. So I wouldn't say it's been tremendously disruptive, but they've been doing a lot of work in a lot of different areas of the building for the past month. And in particular, last week, the children's floor, half to 2/3 of it was off limits to the public, because they were and continue to be installing a large piece of the equipment in the ceiling above where the easy readers and the picture books are. So a lot of those materials had to be moved to different parts of the library. No, not just different parts of the floor. We thought we were going to have to bring them down here, but we were able to, with the carts and planning, we were able to shift some of the shelves over to where the computers are and where the play area normally is. So all the materials that had to be out of the way are still accessible, still in order. So that was very good. That was Sherry did a very good job planning to make sure that that happened and was executed well. So they think they'll be done by the end of the week with the install. You know, things change constantly, but they thought they'd be done last week originally, but right now they're thinking they'll finish up this week. So looking forward to having the ceiling put back in place in the children's floor and opening everything back up the way it was. And we have heat again, which is nice because it was starting to get cold in here a few days. Let's see. Library use is similar to what we've seen since we reopened. Circulation's down from last September. We did just under 3,300 this year versus just under 4,000 last year. But it's really not that dramatic when you consider that we were only open 3 days a week in September. Digital circulation is making up a larger chunk of our circ than it has in the past. It's getting almost to a third of our total circulation at this point, whereas it was maybe a quarter last year, if that, and it's been kind of rising steadily. So that's a change, but people are still coming in and using our physical materials more than the digital stuff. Our door counter shows that we had more visitors this year than last year in September, but I don't think that's true. I think it just is a matter of the workmen going back and forth in and out past the door counter and artificially inflating that number. It's been a little bit difficult to track that accurately because we now have a different entrance than exit. So before we would just take the number on the door counter, chop it nicely in half, assuming one for an entrance, one for an exit. Now that doesn't seem to be working so neatly. So it's, I've been looking at the numbers for last year, how often we're open, and trying to come up with a multiple that will give us an accurate count of who was coming in and out of the building. And I haven't hit upon a sweet spot that there yet.
What can you take from the sign-in?
We could count all the people in the sign-in, but not everybody necessarily signs in, even though they're supposed to. And if you have kids,
No, but
that's
it's
sort
a
of
little,
like a whole, like a.
but it might be better than the door.
It might be better than the door. It's a good idea. Didn't occur to me before. That's a good idea, Emma. At the very least, I can look at both those numbers together and, you know, that'll maybe get me closer to what reality is. Moving on the list down to other notes. So we had 3 staff members miss work over the past month, just for a couple of days because they were feeling some symptoms that possibly could have been COVID related. Luckily, none of it turned out to be COVID, but this is just a preview of what I expect to happen as the weather gets colder. You know, you have a sore throat or you're just feeling off for a day, and it's it can suddenly become you know, several days out, depending on how quickly the test results get back in versus 1 or 0 days if you were just going to come in. The public hearing for the ordinance change for the trustees here is scheduled for the November 5th Board of Selectmen meeting. The exterior signs that were being installed, one of the 2 have been installed so far. If you've been by the library, above the main entrance, the letters that spell out library entrance, they've been up there for a week and a half, 2 weeks. They look really good. The carved sign in the corner is going to be installed probably tomorrow. When he came to install the letters above the door, it was kind of last minute. He had an empty spot in his schedule, and we didn't have the call before you dig stuff squared away in time for him to be able to safely dig there. But now we've got that, and he's gonna hopefully come tomorrow. We're putting together a thorough procedure manual for all of the library assistants and eventually the full-time employees too. So that'll be a long-term project. And it was spurred on by all the new employees that we had. We thought it would be a good idea to have something compacted together that we could hand somebody that just started, that would theoretically, they can look up any basic task that they had to do and how to do it. That wasn't something that existed before. So myself and some part-timers and also Sherry and Claire have collaborated on that over the past month. And we have that first section ready to go or set to go, and we've shared it with the staff, and they think they found it very useful.
Nice.
So the next step will be looking at the LTA ones. So what are their responsibilities above just, starting and getting your feet underneath you at the circulation desk. And the hope is to get a draft of that maybe by early December or so. But it would be great eventually to have this whole book that we can just refer back to. And then when somebody ends up leaving, you can use that as an opportunity to have them look over all their tasks in the book and make sure that everything is accurate. So we're trying to develop a
Have the
plan to
LT
keep it up to date too.
Have the LTAs been contributing to this project?
Yes, they have. So one of our LTAs, Laurie Roman in particular, this was a job she was working on, but it wasn't really focused in the way that it could have been. She was putting together different procedures, but not in an order that was as organized as we wanted them to be useful. So we were using what she was writing up, and then we added some things that we didn't have written up yet, and then we kind of tag teamed all the materials that weren't written up yet. The hope is with the next section is that we can pass on some more of the writing to the staff, because especially the new people, it's kind of a nice way to reinforce training, to have them write out all the steps of what they're doing. So as they're being trained now, write out how you think you're supposed to do it, and that also tells us if we've trained you in the way that we want you to be trained. So that will be going on. The state annual report is due on November 16th. This year's report is going to be a little more challenging than normal, just because things like amount of hours we were open aren't as uniform as they normally are year to year, since we were closed for that chunk of time in the spring. I'm going through it now, and it's coming along, but it's a little bit more challenging than it was last year. We were originally scheduled to do training on the web-hosted version of Evergreen this month, but it was rescheduled by Bibliomation to February. I've canceled our subscription to the Brain HQ database. It was like a brain training game subscription that we had. That was a good product, but nobody really was using it. It was advertised on the front page of the website, and it was expensive for it to sit there, and I think we had 0 uses this year on it. So we won't see really much for a payback this year, because we the majority of the savings will be in next year's budget as opposed to this year's. We haven't really found an effective way of bringing programming back to the library in a virtual environment. So we had an author visit in September, and we had children's programs throughout the summer, and everything that we've hosted on Zoom has been very low attendance. So I guess we're looking at trying to do this in a different way. So the children's department has been doing take-home story time kits, and we're looking to do some similar take-home craft kits for the teens and the adults on this floor. But I wanted to reach out to you guys to see if you had any ideas for a virtual program that you thought you might want to attend, or something that you think would be of interest to the community. Absolutely open to doing them. I just hate to book stuff and pay a performer to come in and then, have 2 or 3 people show up. It's just not worth the time and energy for that small of an audience. So if you have any ideas, now is great, but also if you just thought of something later, I'm absolutely all ears for that. We think that the weather and going back to school and so many people are maybe a little burnt out on being on their computer all day long. I'm hoping that changes a little bit as we get to darker months and it's a little bit colder, outside so much. So we're going to be trying some more of this stuff in the next few months and seeing if we can get something to hook a little bit better.
And I'll keep my eyes and ears open for that. I am connected to the lifelong learning. But I think it's going to be a little difficult now for the reasons that you stated, but also I think parents and children are competing for their computers at home with students needing to use their computers, a lot more, especially in families when there's, more than one child using it for school activities and, needing multiple computers and things.
And
So,
parents working from home.
yes, that's what, yeah. So the competition is there for needing multiple computers and things. So, yeah, it's going to be tough, but I'll keep my eyes and ears open.
Yeah, and thank you. I think that and maybe it's just not something that's going to work for this community, and that's okay. But I want to make sure we're giving it a really fair, good shot. And I'm optimistic that the idea of like a takeaway Christmas ornament or something like that might be more appealing to people that are coming in, and might just function better in this environment. It's something that you can take and you don't have to be there at a specific time, but you can work on later together. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
You may have seen in the paper that Governor Lamont made $2.6 million in funds available to libraries for relief for materials purchased for the COVID pandemic. So unfortunately, those funds were pre-allocated to 65 libraries by the governor's office before the announcement was even made. So as I found out there was funding available, we found out that we weren't able to get any of that funding. So we were not among the selected to receive the funds. Those were 65 of the libraries in the state that were chosen by the governor's office. And
Were they mostly large city city locations, libraries?
Some of them were. I wouldn't say they all were. It's not 100% clear at this point, but
So there was no application process. It was just a done deal.
yeah, I'm sure that it will come out at some point how they chose everything, but there was a lot of anger in the library community that that this stuff was presented to us and then just kind of taken away at the same time. So we don't know exactly what how these libraries were selected or why we weren't considered and they were. And the last part of my report is just the professional development that I did over the past month. I was at a webinar last week run by the State Library for a needs assessment, which talked about how to target your programming for specific audiences you may have in your town, and talked a little bit about having townwide surveys to how to write them in a way so they actually give you information that you can use when planning your programs down the line. I wish it was a little more focused on that as opposed to the other thing, but I got some really good ideas and some good notes from it going forward. And I think it's something we may want to consider in the upcoming years, especially as we're coming to the end of our strategic plan. That would be a good jumping off point for a next step. And additionally, I was at a webinar for creating modern library experiences for small and rural libraries, which is also interesting. There was a lot of talk about technology and leasing technology, so you might be able to afford some things on a smaller budget than you could, because you can purchase it outright with the same budget, the budget that you have versus a larger town. A lot of people in favor of RFID, which is a way of tracking the materials in the library. That's an expensive install, but does let you do a lot of really cool things like scan the shelves and see if everything's in order without having to like read every single spine label. You can just scan it and the computer will tell you right away. And it also makes things like self-checkout a lot more secure because you can scan the books as they're walking through an area as opposed to having to really grab a specific barcode, which self-checks a lot of times patrons use them incorrectly, and there's less room for error. But it's an expensive proposition, so I'm not sure it's something that is really on our plate right now, but perhaps in the future. So that's the end of my report here. Does anybody have any questions or anything they'd like to have me clarify? No?
Okay, Friends of Douglas Library, Pam, please.
Yeah, well, the Friends actually held a book sale. It was a few weeks ago. And, you know, we had enough people to man the sale. Thanks to Tim and Maureen, they came up with a plan to keep people moving through the book sale in a proper direction. And the response from the public was very positive. We were very fortunate to have a nice day and move the children's portion outside, which freed up a lot of space. And because there's usually a lot of people hovering around the children's section, looking at books and kids looking at books. So it was fortunate. At our last meeting, we brainstormed what we might do for the next one in November, if we can have it. All depends on COVID rates. Right now we're planning on it, but that may change. And we were trying to think of ways, you know, because probably in November, it's going to be too cold to have the table outside for the children. So financially, we did very well at the sale. I don't remember the exact number, and I looked for my minutes and I don't know where I put them. I'm a little disorganized lately. But we did very well at the sale. And there was a lot of people who thanked us for having a sale, and grateful for the people who worked the sale that were able to be there. Unfortunately, I was not at the sale, so but they did have enough volunteers to be there. So we look forward to November. We don't know what it's, you know, it would be the same basic setup that we had in October. But it'll all depend on the COVID in the health department guidance. And thank you, Kevin, for helping us through the process.
This is Gail. I'd like to add on to Pam's review of the sale. I worked the sale all day. I was taking the money and I usually do that. I usually play cashier, but I was amazed over the number of people who would have $14, $15, $16 worth of books, hand me a 20 and say, keep the change. I'm so glad you had a sale. I'm so glad you're open. It was quite an experience, as busy as I was all day. So, and that's the plan worked well, because people came in through the regular doors, but they exited through the back. So it was quite a day.
Okay. This is Sue. I agree. Everybody was very happy that we were open that day, and it was perfect weather.
Mm.
So hopefully we'll have the November one and have another wonderful day. Okay, town managers rep, Donna, please. Who? Donna?
She's not there, is she?
Okay, here I am.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Oh,
I just had to unmute myself. So, we're still staying on top of COVID and following up where we need to and working on making sure everybody has appropriate PPE and other supplies that they need. Kevin already mentioned the public hearing for the ordinance amendment on November 5th at 6:30. The other things, I think I'll report under the technology update. And then I can add to anything under the projects, under the old business building updates. That's all I have
Okay,
for
thanks.
now. Thank you.
And, all right, I'm just gonna give, I'm the interim chairperson. And I just like to say, I love the new lighting in the library. I wish we had gotten it years ago.
Yeah.
And I'd like to thank Sherry and her crew for moving the books and all of those bookcases upstairs to clear the route for the HVAC equipment. That was quite a job that they did. They went above and beyond. So I really think they deserve a huge round of applause for that. And I did notice the new sign out by the road with the hours the other day, and I was glad to see that. People need to know that we are open again. And that's it for me.
Can we go back to Board of Selectmen because we skipped Gail?
All right, I will.
Sorry.
I think the big news is that budget time is already starting, and this Thursday, per the charter, the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, the Superintendent of Schools will be meeting to decide what the direction is going to be. So we're never without budget talks. You might say we just started on a budget, but already we're looking at what's happening for the future. That's all I have right now.
Thank you. All right, on to the old business, building updates. The capital spreadsheet.
So on page 10 of the packet, this is the updated spreadsheet with all the capital projects on it. The updates for the most part are just in notes, and some of this kind of covers the next couple of letters too. But I've gone over everything with the HVAC and everything seems to be going well with that. The carpeting, so actually I should say, no, yeah, we'll go with the carpeting. So I sent an email out last week regarding the budgeting for carpeting. And we are in the process of getting 2 more quotes just to see if we can get it done for less money than what we have budgeted. I've got one of those quotes back, but I'm waiting on the second one right now. They came and measured last Tuesday, so I was kind of expecting to get it hopefully today, but I'll probably end up getting it tomorrow. He said it would be something like 4 or 5 days. So we will see what happens with that as far as the numbers that they put out. So assuming that we end up staying with the vendor that we've been with, we have about a $2,000 shortfall with what is budgeted and with what we were looking at in terms of carpets. We can make up that shortfall a couple of ways. So I think I laid it out in the email, either by spending the $2,000 out of 016 or by changing the carpet that we're putting on the 3rd floor to something that's a little bit less costly. So what I've done is in the packet, the last couple of pages are carpeting layouts for the 3rd floor. And the last 4 the ones that are kind of colored blocks, are of a material that is a little bit cheaper than the other materials. I've been told that it will wear as well as the stuff that we're putting in the rest of the building. I have some samples of it and it looks like maybe a touch thinner than the other ones, but other than that, it seems like it's very well built and it's a good, and I'm told it's a good product. So if we decided that one of those designs worked for us, then I think we'd be all set. We should be able to go forward with everything else as planned. Otherwise, we would need to make a decision about where the $2,000 would be coming from, which would either be the through the 016 fund, or we could change what we're doing in the reading room. That would probably get us back the money as well if we went and just did the carpet squares throughout the entire second floor instead of doing something a little more period appropriate in the reading room. So I think that I would love to have you guys take a look at the design choices, and then maybe sometime in the next week and a half, vote like you have on the first floor and the second floor. Maybe we come to the decision that we just like one of the carpets that happens to be less expensive the best, and we can just go with that. And maybe not, and then we can make the decision from there how we want to address the budgetary shortfall.
Okay. So, do we want to say that we can all have our votes in by like the 28th?
That
Would
would be good.
give us about a week and a half? Or, well, yeah, a week and a half. To make a decision. And if, you know, if we decide that we need to reduce the cost, then we can revisit that. But at least if we get a decision, we'll be able to move ahead, all things, if all things fall into place.
Am I assuming that the first 2 pages of colors choices are the more expensive, and the final 2 pages with the blocks are the less expensive carpet?
That's correct. Yeah, the first 4 are the ones that I think I've sent you previously. So
Right.
you've seen those before, and then the last 2, the last 2 pages are the newer ones that are a little bit less costly, which I like.
Are you trying to influence us?
No, I'm not.
I'm teasing.
Question on the ones that are less expensive. I just want to confirm, Kevin, that they are still commercial grade and antimicrobial.
I definitely asked about commercial grade. I'll double check on antimicrobial, but he kind of waved it off and said that it should be, it's a good product and it's not something we should have to worry about.
And the warranty is as long?
I don't know about that. That's something I would have to ask about.
So we need a couple more answers before we really make decisions.
Perhaps, yeah.
Yeah, but you could get those answers pretty quickly, I think, and send out an email maybe.
I can definitely send out an email, and I guess assuming everything is in line with what we're expecting, then
Yeah.
perhaps the vote would be fine to do in a week and a half.
Sure.
If we find out that, yeah, there's 0 warranty on this carpet versus what everything else that we're getting, or it isn't antimicrobial, then that definitely would change the conversation, and then we would take it from there. Yeah.
Well, you could just tell us not to consider those.
Oh, true, of course. Yeah, if we get the answers sooner rather than later.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'll send an email tomorrow. He's usually pretty good about following up.
So will you give us, when you send us the information, give us like side by side, like this one has the first have like a 10-year warranty and the second has a 5-year, or there's the same, or, so we can compare.
Sure, yeah, I can do that. I'm guessing
Okay.
the warranty information will probably even just be on the website, but
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
sure.
All right, moving on to the roof, I guess.
Okay, so the roofing project, the quote that came back for that from Gordian and Nyack ended up being more expensive than we were hoping it would be, with the additions to the flat roof area to raise up the HVAC units a couple of inches for winter protection.
Mm-hmm.
So that added more cost than we were anticipating. So the town manager's office has elected to go out for bid on that project to see how those numbers line up with other bids. So the building committee is putting together an RFP now. Donna, you probably can speak about it better than I can.
So one thing that made that much more expensive, we budgeted 98,500 for the roof. We knew we were short, but the proposal that they gave us was well over 200,000. It was more than double what we have budgeted. Included in the number they gave us is their basically 23% in addition to the cost of the project, because Gordian, Nyack, and Krog make money on this. And then Nyack subcontracts it to another roofer. So really it's almost like a pyramid. So everybody's making money. It was almost $50,000 that we were going to be paying just in fees. So it didn't make sense to do that. So the building committee is looking at it again, and they're going to help with preparing an RFP. It will go out to bid, and the town will manage the project, and it's not going to be done until the spring.
And can we avoid this scheme?
It's not a scheme. It's a program that works very well for certain types of projects, because you contract with this company, the Gordian Group, and they do all the legwork for you. They manage the project. But when we looked at the numbers, it was 23 or 24% like a markup. And it just did not make sense to spend almost $50,000 on.
For the management.
Right, well, yes. So, especially when we don't have the money budgeted. So we have to go back to the RFP process. It's going to take us a little bit longer than we had hoped.
Okay. All right, exterior signage.
No new information there other than what was in my report already. The second sign will hopefully be installed tomorrow, and the first sign is already installed.
All right, poet laureate is tabled. And I can't see what's under that on my agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sue. I thought you had it at home. I wasn't.
No, I don't, sorry.
No, it's my fault.
I'm looking at
Ordinance
your,
changes is next.
okay. All right, ordinance changes. November 5th is the meeting. At 6:30. It's a virtual,
I'll send out the link.
okay. And, okay, new business, capital projects for fiscal year 2021 and 22.
So the capital projects for next fiscal year are due a couple days after our, I think it's the end of the week after our next November meeting in November. So I'm starting to think about those and look at them. I don't have anything large in mind for submitting that's a capital project. I don't think we're at the point where we're ready to talk about building anything like a teen area. We have the pavement a couple years down the line. I think it's in 23.
Yeah.
That I'll resubmit and we'll, edge it up closer to being done.
Okay.
But I don't foresee introducing anything brand new. I think we should focus on getting everything that we have started done for the time being.
Okay.
We probably should put in a request for the rest of the money we need for the roof. So Kevin, we can discuss what that amount should be, but we know it's going to be more than what we have allocated right now.
Okay.
So the roof project, for those of you that don't know, there's the possibility that we have to strip the entire roof and the underlayment, so that we're going to be putting on a whole new base and then the roofing. So there's different philosophies on how to handle it, but it is going to be probably twice as much as what we have currently allocated.
Well, good that we have.
And why would we be doing the entire roof? Is most of it in need or close to being in need?
The base of the roof is not plywood. It is something that is called homosote, and it has a fire rated layer, but it's more like a really thick, hard press board or cardboard. It's not plywood. So it does not wear well. You can't just strip it like a regular roof, because you can't take the nails out with a roof rake kind of thing. So the recommendation is, and this is where the debate is, do we take everything off and put on new plywood? Or can we go over the existing, strip it and leave the homosote and go over it with a really thin layer of plywood? But it gets really technical. So that's why the building committee's looking at it. But it's the base layer that's there right now is not ideal, and it's not in good shape.
But we knew that
Yes.
it was homosote pretty much from the beginning.
Donna, are you talking to, you're muted, Donna.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Wasn't sure if you're talking to somebody off camera.
No. We knew that it was homosote from a while back, but the contractors did not know that. They weren't sure what was up there. They did some testing and they came back and told us that's what it was, but we did know that. But when we originally budgeted, we weren't budgeting to replace the entire substrate.
Correct.
So.
Yes.
What did you say the options were? You said take everything off or what? Donna?
We could take everything off and start with a completely new base.
Yeah.
There's some thought to leave what's there and go over it with a thin layer of plywood.
Okay.
Over the homosote, but you would still remove the roofing materials.
The shingles, yeah, you would remove the
Yes.
shingles, leave the homosote and go over the
Right.
homosote with a very thin layer of plywood. So the
But if
concern,
the homosote isn't very, if the homosote isn't in good condition, is that making a shorter term answer to a long-term problem?
I don't know for sure. Everybody has a different idea of how it should be done. So that's why we're having the building committee take another look at it. They've looked at it a few times and, you know, they're not even all on the same page. But if you do that, so you have the thickness that you have, and then you're adding to it, and that can be an issue with Kevin, help me here, with the flashing or with the siding and the flashing.
Yeah,
and
the flashing
gutters
coming
and-
over not being exactly the same level one to another, that can definitely cause a lot of problems. There
So
was-
we don't want to make it too thick or too thin. We want it to be whatever that substrate is, to be the same depth as it is now, or as close as it can be.
Are they finding that that homosote is not a good product and that it should be removed?
They're still manufacturing it. They still use it in some applications. Because I checked out their website, but
Oh, yeah, it's been around for decades.
yeah.
Right, but it's got products injected within that might be negative to the environment, and that's sort of what I'm getting at.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I think we have to let go with the building committee and have them.
Oh, yeah.
everybody-
Exactly, yeah, those guys know, they're good.
All right. Any more questions on the roof? Okay, strategic plan. Peter's not here, so I don't have any info on that. Technology, Donna?
Sure. So we're reviewing computer replacement schedule now with Novus, our IT company.
Yeah.
And we are going to be getting some thin clients. Those are what we use for our public computers. They're left surplus from Yukon, so at no cost. And Kevin will work with Novus to determine where we can add those to the library. We're doing a pretty big project where we're rolling out our switching over to Office 365 for our email and for all of our Office Suite applications. So we have started that process, and we're going to work on including the library in that. It may involve switching over some emails that are currently not on Town of Hebron's Exchange server. But Kevin met with me and our manager from Novus to go over that. And the best part of that will be that the email is going to be much more efficient, but it will also eventually get the library onto a system where everything will be stored up in the cloud and backed up and maintained the way that it should be. Right now, things are being stored on individual computers, and that's not always the best way to do things. So, Kevin, do you want to add to that, or?
I'm very excited about getting on board with this. I think it has a lot of real potential to make it easier for us to work over here. And particularly a lot of the staff start the project on one computer, finishes it on another. if you've used Google Drive before to do documents and collaborate with people, it's something that is really useful, and it's a great tool. So I'm looking forward to building it into our workflow. And if we have another pandemic and I have to work from home from a couple of months, this will make it a lot easier than having to drag the computer back and forth. I'm here half the time and home the other half.
Okay, diversity, Dale and Kevin.
Yeah.
Any
Dale,
news?
Dale and I have met a couple of times in the last month. So eventually we had tried a few times and we didn't have, had some trouble with scheduling, but I was able to meet with Bishop John Selders, who we spoke about last meeting a little bit. He is the founder of the Moral Monday movement that runs out of Hartford. He is the, I don't remember his exact title. I think he's the Associate Dean of Curriculum for Trinity College, something to that effect. So Dale and I have been talking about doing a community-wide read on a book that addresses social issues surrounding race. And we wanted to reach out to him to get any sort of ideas for programs or anything that we might be able to follow it up with, or see if he had any suggestions for materials that might be particularly good for us to read through. He pointed me in the direction of a program that he was working with the New Canaan Public Library on, where they have did a series of 6 lectures, each discussing a different way that systematically we have oppressed Black people in this country. And I attended the one that he put on, which just talked about, what is it titled up here? History of Racism, 1865 to Present. So I attended his lecture there, which I thought was pretty informative. He covered a lot of ground in an hour. So, you know, I'm looking at these as a potential way that, you know, we could potentially go. Perhaps we do a community-wide read that maybe culminates in a few lectures like this. He expressed to me that he thought the best way to go about it would be to work with the Historical Society. So Emma, I've been meaning to reach out and talk to you to kind of, instead of looking at history of, you know, a whole area, trying to really focus it down to how the town was formed and how different decisions were made and how they've affected what the community looks like now. And, you know, some interesting ideas, I thought. So so that was a good contact. I look forward to reaching out to him again when maybe we're a little bit further down the line. I've also reached out to some authors potentially to come in and speak about a book. So I was aiming kind of high, and I some people that were on the bestseller list, and their asking fee is a little bit above what we can probably afford. So unless any of you have 10 grand to have somebody speak for an hour on a Zoom call, I was hoping that because it was a Zoom call, we might be able to get somebody really affordably, because there's no travel. There's not like a lot, it's not a whole weekend thing. It's essentially, you know, a 90-minute commitment. But I guess that's not the case. So we got a quote for like 10 grand, and we got a quote for like 6 grand.
Wow.
And so I'd still like to make something like that happen. We're not in a position right now to do that, and I wasn't thinking of getting a whole bunch of sponsors and everything together at the moment. But it's good to know at least that's the sort of price people are asking for that sort of program. And maybe we can find somebody more local, or maybe we can find somebody that has a connection to Connecticut in a way that they might either cut us a deal or what. So we need to talk about what book we want to potentially do. And I thought maybe we could work back from an author willing to do a program. And that may not be the best way to go about it.
Okay. Community, Gail.
No, Deb and I have nothing to report at this time.
Okay. And last is lifelong learning, Althea.
Okay, well, we talked about that a little bit when Kevin gave his report.
Right.
Yeah, and I haven't talked with Claire, but it's kind of difficult right now with the pandemic, and Kevin's just spoke of it again, basically.
Right.
Trying to get programs and everything going, but I'm going to kind of make a commitment right now to speak with Claire and see what ideas she has, and see if there's some kind of way that I can assist her in any way in getting some things going, see what possibilities there are. So just
Okay.
keep that in mind. Yeah.
All
Can I
right.
just add, it's Donna, I just want to add to the diversity and community items. For those of you that might not know, the Board of Selectmen is establishing a steering committee on racial justice and equity. And they're going to be, we're still brainstorming what that charge and what the composition will be, but we're recruiting members for that, looking to have as broad diversity as possible serving on that committee. And they'll be working for several months with a facilitator to make some recommendations or a report to the Board of Selectmen. So just another avenue that we're trying to explore to cover those items.
Okay.
If you're looking for town staff at all to participate, I'm happy to volunteer for that, Donna. I may not
Thank
be.
you, Kevin. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have anything they want to bring up? Otherwise, we can adjourn. If I can get a motion.
I so move.
All right.
Second.
Second. All right.
That was
Discussion.
Gail made the motion and MA seconded.
Correct. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. We are adjourned.
Have a good week.
Thank you.